Hey guys, tonight we lie beneath a canopy older than cities where the air smells like damp bark, distant stars, and something gently waiting. The forest around you rustles, not in warning, but in rhythm. Not with birdsong or crickets, but something quieter, deeper, the kind of sound that only becomes audible when all other sounds go to sleep. Something that listens to the wind and the stars. Welcome to the forest at night. And by the way, you probably won't survive this. Not in a falling into a sinkhole way, more in a the stars will look different to you forever after this way. Yeah, sorry about that. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also post your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where on earth you're dreaming from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lie back on a patch of moss that feels more memory foam than plant life. All around you, tree trunks rise like ancient spires, and above them, just barely visible through the branches, is the sky. And in that sky, a tapestry of stars, bright and slow and far, but not silent. You stare upward, and something stares back. Not eyes exactly, not a face, but there's a presence to the forest tonight. Like the trees are leaning just slightly as if they're craning to get a better look at the constellations. One by one the stars appear. No ceremony, just emergence. A soft blink here, a glimmer there, and the forest changes. The wind dies down, not stops, just lowers its voice. The leaves shift from rustling to something gentler, listening mode. Then something subtle happens. You notice that the tips of the tallest trees are angled, not straight up like you'd expect, but tilted, and all tilted in the same direction. Toward a star, you sit up a little. No way right trees grow toward the sun shore. That's Botany 101. But the sun set hours ago, and these aren't young saplings. These are massive old giants who should have long since made up their minds on where to grow. You whisper, "Are you watching?" And the wind answers, not with a sound, but with a pause. As if it surprised you finally asked. Here's something fun. Certain plants do respond to starlight, faintly, slowly, but it happens. Experiments show some nocturnal leaves subtly adjust to celestial light. Why, no one's sure. It's not enough for photosynthesis, but the behavior is there, a kind of instinctive orientation. And that begs the question, what are they orienting toward? You walk slowly now, weaving through trees that creak gently, not from age, but as if they're adjusting posture, like guests at a concert leaning into a melody. Historians still argue whether ancient groves were planted in alignment with constellations or if those patterns just appeared in hindsight. Some forests mirror Orion. Others follow lunar calendars. Coincidence, folklore, wishful thinking, or collective memory. You pause beside a massive oak bark, grooved like it was carved by time itself. Its topmost branches form an arc, an echo of the Big Dipper. Maybe you look up, then back down. The pattern matches, not perfectly, but just enough. You lie back again, and now you see it. The whole canopy isn't random. It's arranged, subtle, organic, but the alignment is there. Like the trees didn't just grow toward the sky, but grew in relation to it. You close your eyes, and the whispering begins. Not in words, not yet, just in shifts. The forest is remembering something written in stars. You stay where you are, barely moving, heart-tuned to that strange quiet that isn't empty but full, the kind of quiet that holds every rustle, breath, and creak like a secret waiting to be told. The stars above shimmer steadily now, less like lights and more like punctuation marks In some celestial sentence, the forest has been reading for centuries. You sit up, brushing your fingers across the moss, and glance again at the canopy. It's subtle, but the lean of the trees is undeniable. One after another, tall pines and birches, all angled not drastically, but just enough to be noticed now that you're paying attention. Not toward the moon, not toward each other, toward one specific cluster of stars. The Pleiades, maybe. Or is that Cassiopeia? Your stargazing app has no signal out here. Of course it doesn't. You begin to walk. As you wind through the trees, you notice a pattern. Every now and then, a tree tilts more obviously. Its trunk curves delicately like a dancer mid-pose, its branches stretched in a reach that could only have been shaped over decades, and all of them pointing almost reverently toward that same patch of sky, not toward the sun, toward stars. But why? Phototropism explains how plants grow toward light. That part's easy. Sunlight hits a leaf, hormones shift cells, elongate bingo curved tree. But at night there's no sun. And starlight, it's barely stronger than a birthday candle 3 states away. And yet here you are surrounded by a forest that looks like it's trying to follow the stars. Or maybe count them. It reminds you of something odd you once read in some high-altitude forests. Trees grow asymmetrically, not just because of wind, but because of celestial exposure. In Chilean pine forests, certain scientists observed that needle growth on one side of the tree was slightly denser depending on starlight exposure. Fringe theory, maybe. But here in this ancient grove, it feels less like a theory and more like memory. You reach a narrow hill where the trees open just enough for a clear view of the sky. The stars seem to brighten almost as if responding to your arrival. You sit again, the hill soft and warm beneath you, and tilt your head back. That's when you notice it. The trees are not just leaning toward the stars, they're leaning in a sequence. You count 1, 2, 3 each, slightly more angled than the last, forming an invisible spiral that seems to trace a star's arc across the sky. You follow the line with your finger. It ends at a cluster of small trees just beginning to grow. Saplings, already turning their tiny crowns towards that same constellation. Okay, now that's weird. You kneel beside one. It's barely 3 feet tall, but its topmost leaves are angled in perfect mimicry of its towering neighbors. Not toward light, toward the angle of light. You whisper, "Are you learning from them?" The breeze replies soft and low, like a breath drawn in before speaking. Historians still argue whether ancient astronomers learned from the forest or taught it. In some cultures, trees were planted in star patterns mimicking Orion, the Milky Way, the North Star's path. But in others, groves were simply observed, and people noticed how they seemed to turn with the seasons as if counting something above. You look again at the saplings. They're not just mirroring, they're continuing. It's not mimicry, it's succession, a handing down of angle, position, attention. You realize something then. This forest isn't watching the stars, it's tracking them, like a great green calendar, like a quiet mathematician with roots instead of fingers. You lie back down, head against the moss, and trace a constellation with your eyes. The trees whisper faintly, a rustle here, a creak there. And somewhere deep in the branches above, a leaf drifts down and lands on your chest. You leave it there, because you're part of the count now. You lie there longer than you meant to. Time slows in the forest at night, not in a sleepy way, more like it stretches, bends, becomes something spongy that refuses to tick in a straight line. You breathe in. The moss beneath your head smells like damp stone and something metallic. You sit up. The stars haven't moved much, but the air feels heavier now. denser, like it's thick with memory. You stand and walk again, slower this time. You feel like a guest in a house where everyone else already knows the rules, and then you stumble upon something strange. Tree roots, thick, pale, and exposed, curl along the forest floor, entangled, almost purposeful patterns, like a sketch, like they're trying to draw something underground. You follow them with your eyes and realize they're not random, not even close. The roots form loops, arcs, intersections. They mimic something you've seen before, not on land, but in the sky. You kneel down and place a hand against one of them. The wood is cool and dry, but a hum, faint and rhythmic, passes up your arm. You close your eyes. The beat matches your pulse and then shifts. And it's not your heartbeat anymore. It's Luna. Some trees, it turns out, respond to the moon. Really. Studies have shown certain trees actually breathe in rhythm with lunar phases. Their internal water pressure changes slightly during full moons. It's not huge, nothing dramatic, but measurable and consistent. It's almost like they're sinking to something much, much bigger. You walk further and find a patch of roots spiraling tightly around a shallow depression in the earth. The ground glows faintly here, not like fire or magic, more like reflected light, though there's no obvious source. You lean down and whisper, "Do you remember the moon?" The root beneath your hand twitches barely. Could be your imagination, but it doesn't feel imaginary. You step back, and the moon breaks through a hole in the canopy above, casting silver down onto the roots. That's when you see it. The pattern, the way the roots wrap in tight loops, slowly widening outward in precise spirals. It's the lunar cycle, mapped in roots, like some arboreal lunar calendar laid out beneath your feet. And at the very center, a single fern unfurls, its leaves shaped like a crescent. Of course they are. You move slowly now, hyper-aware of every snap of twig, every crunch of lichen. You're not walking through a forest. You're walking on a memory. Historians still argue whether lunar calendars came first from the stars or the land. Some cultures tracked the moon's cycle using stones, bones, or carved sticks. But in a few ancient texts, there are suggestions that certain groves changed subtly in shape and behavior, depending on the moon flowering only during new moons, shedding only under full ones. Folklore maybe, but consistent across continents. You pause beneath a willow. Its branches trail like curtain cords, swaying gently despite the stillness of the air. You touch one. It pulses. You don't jump this time. You just nod. Yeah, you whisper. I thought so. You wonder for a moment what the forest is counting. Days, months, seasons, or something less linear. Something like moments. Maybe the trees aren't just counting time. Maybe they're collecting it. And when they lean toward stars, maybe they're not measuring position. Maybe they're comparing notes. You move on, and as you walk, the ground dips slightly. The roots fade beneath moss again, but you can still feel them, still humming, still counting. You descend into a shallow basin in the forest, one of those subtle land dips that doesn't announce itself until you realize the trees above are slightly taller and your breath makes a softer echo. The moss underfoot is thick, the kind you could probably sleep on without regret. You glance up and that's when you see it. An old fallen tree, massive, its trunk cracked down the middle, exposing a pale, weathered core. But it's not the break that grabs your attention. It's the rings, clean, sharp, and oddly uneven. You approach slowly and kneel beside the exposed trunk. The surface is smooth, worn by time or weather, or maybe just 100 years of squirrels using it as a table. The rings circle out from the center like ripples in frozen water. You trace one with your finger. It wobbles slightly, thicker on one side, thinner on the other. Then further out, another set flares unusually wide, followed by a sudden compression. You count 1, 2, 15. Then 3 unusually narrow rings close together. It feels like Morse code, but in tree. You tilt your head. The wide rings, they look almost patterned. And their spacing, could it match a calendar? Turns out, tree rings don't just mark years, they store history. Everything from droughts and fires to solar flares, and yes, even meteor showers. Some researchers have noted that, in particularly old trees, growth changes coincided with known cosmic events, temperature shifts, atmospheric dust, even radiation. So maybe these uneven rings are more than scars. Maybe they're records. You think about it, a tree growing quietly for hundreds of years, absorbing not just water and sunlight, but sky. Witnessing lunar eclipses, falling stars, even the northern lights. Every light in the sky counted in wood. You run your fingers further out to the edge where the bark used to be. That's when you notice it, tiny flecks of black embedded in one of the wider rings. You squint. Charcoal ash. No, something shinier. Meteorite dust. Maybe. You laugh quietly. You're kidding, you say to the tree. It says nothing back, of course, but the wind picks up again, as if nudging you toward a response. Historians still argue whether ancient peoples tracked cosmic events by observing nature, or whether they used star maps and simply noticed trees were reacting too. In some cultures, sky groves were planted in clusters, each tree a timekeeper, each grove a sort of wooden observatory. The stories say these trees learned to track falling stars better than any priest. You step back and look at the fallen tree as a whole. The cracked line down its center seems almost intentional, like it wanted you to see inside. Not its age, its memory. The whispering returns, soft and clear. It sounds different now. Not words still, but sharper in rhythm, like someone turning pages in a giant invisible book. You close your eyes and follow it inward. Not walking, just listening. The whisper grows louder when you exhale. You try again. Inhale, nothing. Exhale, whisper. As if the forest is speaking in the spaces you leave behind. You place a hand flat on the tree rings and lean in. For one strange moment, you swear you hear a pulse, not from you, not from the earth, from the wood itself. Slow, regular, tick, tick, and then nothing. But that's all you need, because now you understand the forest doesn't just remember time. It measures it, and maybe, just maybe, it counts the stars the way you count tree rings. You rise from the fallen tree, slowly wiping your hands on your pants like you've just touched a sacred relic, which, let's be honest, you probably have. The forest feels different now. Not louder, not darker, just more awake. Like something under the surface has started listening back, not out of suspicion, just curiosity. You move deeper into the trees, where the branches intertwine overhead and create a tunnel of filtered green moonlight. It's the kind of light that doesn't fully illuminate anything, just makes everything feel made of mist and memory. And then you see it, a cluster of strange trees. Shorter, bushier, their leaves thick and deep green, with a waxy sheen that catches the starlight like tiny mirrors. At first glance, nothing unusual. But then a breeze passes and something extraordinary happens. The leaves open, not just flutter, not sway. They actually open, unfolding like slow-motion hands turning upward. And they only do it in one direction, toward the sky, specifically toward the stars. You freeze watching. The entire grove seems to shift posture. These aren't sun chasers like ordinary plants. These are starlight seekers. You step closer. One leaf twitches as you pass, as if acknowledging your presence. You crouch beside it and hold out your hand. The leaf quivers and then stills. It's waiting. You look up. The stars overhead glimmer through a break in the trees, and one in particular seems just a little brighter than the others. You don't know its name, but the leaf sure seems to, because it tilts ever so slightly in that direction, as if locked in a silent conversation across unimaginable distance. This isn't light-seeking behavior. This is attention. There's a theory fringe, of course, that certain nocturnal plants don't just respond to light, but to starlight-specific wavelengths, that the sky's ancient glow, though weak, carries enough energy and information to trigger subtle behaviors in sensitive organisms, a theory most dismissed, but you're watching it happen. Historians still argue whether the forest's fascination with the stars began with human superstition or if it predates even that. Some myths say the first stars were trees that grew so tall they pierced the sky and set themselves alight. Others say the stars are what fell from the trees one by one and took root in heaven. You look again at the leaves. They don't pulse, they don't glow, they just open and remain open. Listening, you lie down beside one of the smaller trees and look up through its parted leaves. The stars shine above, bright and steady, but now they feel closer, like something inside the forest is drawing them in, not physically, but with intention. And you wonder, maybe the trees aren't worshiping the stars. Maybe they're studying them like apprentices. You reach up and touch one of the open leaves. It's warm, just slightly. You whisper, "What are you learning?" The breeze returns, just enough to make the leaves shiver in place. Not an answer, but definitely a reaction. You rest your head back again, and for a moment you swear the stars shift just barely, as if one of them winked, like they're watching you too. You rise slowly from the leaf-covered ground, brushing tiny bits of stardust, probably just pollen off your sleeves. The grove of starlight followers fades behind you, but your mind's still there, replaying those leaves, opening toward the night sky like pilgrims at a shrine. You keep glancing up now, not for direction, but as if the stars might drop you a hint, or at least wave back. The path ahead winds through a section of the forest that feels denser, older. The trees here are thicker, their bark knotted and dark, their limbs reaching like ribs over a secret. And then you find it, a clearing, wide, flat, ringed with ancient trees, spaced with unsettling symmetry, not randomly scattered, placed, deliberate. You step into the open and look up. Your breath catches. The stars above form a constellation, nothing new there, but the trees are arranged to match it, not just vaguely, precisely. A grove shaped like the constellation it mirrors. You spin slowly in the center, tracing each tree's position against the stars above. The angles are perfect, the spacing mathematical. One by one, the trunks line up with each star in the cluster. Some of the trees even lean slightly in the same orientation as their celestial twins. It's like the forest is drawing the sky on the ground. Who did this? No signs of human intervention. No paths, no fences, no worn soil from footsteps. Just nature and intent. You walk tree to tree, comparing heights, spacing, even the spread of branches. The pattern holds, a sky map in wood. There's a legend from ancient Finland about the star forest, a place where every tree was planted in accordance with the heavens. Not for aesthetics, for remembrance. A forest that was the sky's memory printed on earth. Most dismiss it as myth. No archaeological evidence, just old poetry. But here it is, and it's not just beautiful, it's functional. Because here's the catch. The constellation above isn't static. Stars shift slightly with the season, but the trees, they've grown in a way that compensates for that leaning. adjusting, self-correcting across generations. That's not artistry, that's observation. Historians still argue whether ancient forests were shaped by accident or ritual. But the symmetry here is too precise, too persistent, to be anything but intentional. Not by human hands, by arboreal ones. If trees had calendars, this grove would be the centerpiece. You walk to the center of the clearing where the ground is strangely bare. No leaves, no moss, just smooth soil with fine cracks like dried skin. Kneeling, you place your hand to it. The temperature drops, not unpleasantly, just enough to make your skin notice. Then comes the sound, soft, deep, like roots humming underground. You close your eyes. You see stars, but not from Earth's perspective, from beneath, as if you're looking up at the underside of the sky. Constellations reversed, points of light poking through bark, like someone carved the sky into the forest ceiling. You open your eyes, pulse steady, breathing slow. You're not hallucinating, you're sinking. You're standing inside a memory. This grove doesn't just represent the sky, it remembers it. And now, so do you. You step backward out of the star-shaped grove, as if careful not to smudge a chalk drawing. The sensation lingers in your spine like a chill left by something ancient and kind. You keep glancing back, half expecting the trees to shift ever so slightly. Once you're out of sight, realign, stretch, count again, but they remain still. You follow a narrow trail now soft underfoot, carpeted in needle-damp quiet. The trees here are thinner and taller, their limbs high above your head like vaulted ceilings. But something's odd, you feel like you're being tracked, not watched, not hunted, tracked. You stop and that's when you see it, a branch, just one, shifting, slowly, delicately as though reaching. You look up. The tree's topmost limbs are moving not in the breeze, there isn't one, and not randomly. They're rotating, tiny, almost imperceptible adjustments toward the planet Venus. You squint. There she is, low on the horizon, that silvery, stubborn little light that refuses to blink. The branch quivers, then steadies, then points. You take a step back. Another tree to your left is doing the same. Their branches are tracking the planet. You laugh under your breath. Okay, now you're just showing off. There's a real phenomenon called heliotropism, plants adjusting to follow the sun across the sky. But what if, just what if some trees kept following after dark, not toward heat or brightness, but toward pattern? A few years ago, a group of fringe ecologists proposed nocturnotropism, the idea that trees respond very subtly to the position of bright night objects like the moon or Venus. Laughed out of peer review. No surprise there. But right now, you're standing in the middle of a living counter-argument. You lie down again, hands folded over your stomach, and stare upward through the umbrella of leaves. Sure enough, Venus creeps higher, and every 5 or 6 minutes, a few branches above you stretch just a little more, adjusting their aim. It's not fast. It's not even visible unless you really pay attention. But it's happening, and not just once. The whole stretch of forest is doing it section by section, not toward the brightest star, toward the most consistent. The branches aren't trying to bask in light. They're synchronizing with a cosmic metronome. Historians still argue whether trees were included in early sky maps for decorative reasons or as actual data points. Some old Middle Eastern star charts show clusters of trees marked near planetary alignments, often dismissed as symbolic. But maybe they weren't symbols, maybe they were witnesses. You whisper, "How long have you been watching her?" The trees creak softly. Just one note, enough to sound like an answer. You sit back up a little dizzy, not from fear but from scale, from the realization that everything above your head might have a counterpart beneath your feet, that the roots could be aligned with the stars too, that every planet might have a tree patiently counting its path like a green astronomer in slow motion. And here you are, right in the middle of their observatory. You look again at Venus, bright and clear. She twinkles just once, and the trees adjust. You continue along the path, though path feels too formal for what this is. More like a shared agreement between your feet and the forest. The ground rises slightly, and the trees begin to change, not in shape but in texture. Their bark is lighter, paler, dotted with patches of lichen. And not just any lichen. This stuff glows, not brightly, more like the faint shimmer of a firefly beneath a sheet of frosted glass. It pulses gently in shades of green and blue, soft as a secret. You approach the nearest patch and crouch, brushing your fingers just above the surface. It feels alive, soft, watchful. The light intensifies slightly, then fades, then returns again. You begin to notice a pattern in the pulses, like blinking, like a signal. You glance up. The sky overhead is speckled with stars, distant and unbothered, and as you squint at them, then back at the lichen, your brain starts to make a connection. The glow matches the zodiac. Each tree in this stretch of forest seems to host a different variation of the lichen. On one trunk, the glow pulses in a triangle. On another, a slow arc. Further ahead, you spot what looks like a crude scorpion shape. You laugh softly. Scorpio. The lichen shimmers once, then twice. Okay, maybe yes. There's a fringe theory, of course there is, that some biological organisms react to astrological alignment. Not fate, not horoscopes, just rhythms. Light, magnetism, lichen. Being weird little composite organisms are sensitive to subtle environmental changes, including, some say, celestial shifts. Historians still argue whether the glowing mosses of Northern Europe were used to mark time or merely admired. But here, standing in a forest that hums under the stars like a giant leafy radio, the answer seems obvious. They weren't admired, they were consulted. You move between the glowing trees, watching the symbols form slowly, organically, like the forest is drawing star maps on its own skin. And then you spot something stranger, a fallen log covered in lichen, glowing much more brightly than the others. You kneel beside it. The shape on this one is complex spiral within a circle within a triangle. It doesn't match any zodiac sign, you know, but it feels familiar. You reach out. The light brightens beneath your palm, not burning, just acknowledging the forest is responding. Not passively, not generically, to you. You sit back on your heels, watching the pattern shift, flicker, reorient, like it's calibrating. You whisper, "Are you mapping me?" A breeze curls through the grove, cool and deliberate. Not a yes, but certainly not a no. You stand and look around. All across the grove, the lichen pulses again, more quickly now, not random, responsive. They're not just copying the sky, they're interacting with it, mirroring, interpreting, translating. The trees might not speak, but these tiny organisms, they just might be the forest's handwriting. And tonight, they're writing starlight. You step back into the center of the grove, let your arms hang loose, and just breathe. The glow flickers all around you, a constellation made of bark, and for the briefest moment, you feel what it must be like to be a star, surrounded by others, observed from below, and slowly counted one blink at a time. You step away from the glowing grove with slow feet and wide eyes, as if the lichen patterns are still clinging to your vision. They kind of are. When you blink, you still see shapes, star-like shadows, mapped across your retinas. But the real forest stretches ahead, now darker and denser, and even though the glow has faded, you feel like you're walking inside the Milky Way. Because that's exactly what it looks like. You crest a low ridge and then you stop. What lies before you isn't just forest. It's structure, a gentle curve of trees, arcing across a wide open field, like the spine of some sleeping celestial creature. Not planted in straight rows, no, this is different. A spiraling formation with branches angled like brush strokes drawing motion in a still world. And overhead, the Milky Way echoes the same curve across the sky. You stand in the middle and spin slowly, above stars, below trees, identical, mirrored. You laugh softly. You're kidding. You grew yourselves into a galaxy. A breeze catches your jacket. The trees sway. You're not sure if it's amusement or agreement. You step into the spiral. Each tree is slightly different species, shape, leaf type, but their angles match. Their placement has a rhythm. If you could lift this entire grove into the sky, you're pretty sure it would lock into place like a puzzle piece between the stars. There's a fringe theory that some ancient cultures didn't just draw star maps, they walked them, built temples and sacred sites to mimic constellations on Earth. The Egyptian pyramids, for example, mirroring Orion's belt. But what if the trees were doing the same, not because humans told them to, but because they chose to? Historians still argue whether the so-called Earth-star alignments are coincidences or if some natural systems mimic cosmic ones. Most lean toward coincidence, but coincidence can only explain so much. And this is commitment. You walk the spiral, slowly tracing the arc. In the center lies a single stone, rounded, moss-covered, worn smooth like a river rock. You sit beside it and look up. The galaxy stretches above you like a river of memory. You close your eyes, and that's when you hear it, not whispering this time, chimes. Faint musical notes rising from the trees themselves, not from birds or wind, from branches, from wood. You listen closely and realize each tree is vibrating slightly. And the pitch, it's different for every tree, like notes in a scale. You turn slowly, head tilted, eyes still shut. The forest is singing the shape of the Milky Way, not loudly, not even audibly really. It's more like a feeling in your ribs, a chord progression for bones. You open your eyes and lie flat on the earth, arms spread wide. The stars above twinkle unbothered. The trees around you hum, and the galaxy turns ever so slowly, just as the forest always knew it would. You stay on your back for a while, staring at the stars and listening to the barely there chorus of creaking branches and distant chimes. It's the kind of sound that doesn't demand attention. It just fills the silence like a lullaby you didn't know you already knew. The forest isn't singing to be heard. It's singing because it remembers. You sit up slowly, brushing your hands along the mossy ground. The spiral grove behind you fades as you re-enter the thick of the woods. The air here is still and scented with damp cedar and cool night. A rustle overhead, a single leaf falls pirouettes and lands near your foot. And then you see them, seeds, tiny winged seeds drifting down like confetti, slow and deliberate, not shaken loose by wind. There is no wind. You hold out your palm and catch one. It's warm, almost too warm for something that's just fallen from a tree. Then another lands, and another. You look up, one tree, only one, shedding seeds. Now, tonight, you squint at the sky above it, and there, just above the canopy, is a meteor. A long, arcing streak of silver cutting through the black. Then another, and another, a meteor shower, and only this tree is releasing seeds. You walk closer, craning your neck, and realize it's not the first time. Beneath it, layers of past seasons, old seed husks, tiny sprouted siblings, already growing in place, and all aligned in soft crescent shapes, like comet tails. You kneel, heart ticking louder. This tree doesn't just know the sky, it's timed to it. There's a fringe observation in botanical journals, mostly dismissed, that some tree species show a spike in seed release during meteor showers, chalked up to temperature shifts or moisture coincidence. But some of the more patient ecologists began tracking it over decades. Same results, same nights. Some trees apparently wait for the sky to move. Historians still argue whether ancient peoples planted groves to match constellations or if they planted them to respond to celestial events. But what if the trees needed no encouragement? What if they watched and waited, and when the stars fell, they planted futures? You catch another seed in your hand. It spins slightly even after landing, like it's still listening to the sky. The whispering returns, not verbal, just that old rhythm again. Inhale, exhale, fall, drift, land, as if the forest is syncing with the stars, not as separate entities, but as reflections. You lie beneath the meteor tree and stare upward. The stars flash, the seeds fall, and you realize something quietly profound. This isn't coincidence, it's choreography, a dance between sky and root, a duet older than language. And now you're watching it in real time. You hold one seed to your ear like a shell, no sound, but it feels like movement, like orbit, like something has just completed a perfect circle. You tuck the seed gently into your pocket like a gift, or maybe a key, and stand up slowly beneath the tree that waits for meteors. The air is still soft with falling starlight. A few more seeds spiral down behind you unconcerned, like the sky is shaking hands with the forest, one particle at a time. You move on, but not far, not quickly. This part of the forest is quieter than the rest, hushed like it's watching a story unfold. And in the distance, you begin to see patterns, small clusters of stones, low mounds of earth, trees planted in rings with bare centers like quiet eyes staring up at the stars. You're not alone in this counting game. People have been here. You kneel beside a circle of stones brushing moss aside. One of them bears a carving worn, almost invisible. It's a crescent moon inside a circle of dots. 12, maybe 13, a lunar calendar. You look around again. The trees encircling this clearing are older than most. Their trunks are gnarled bark, split like dried riverbeds, but they all lean slightly inward like they're listening or remembering. Because here's the thing, ancient peoples planted by the stars, that much we know. The Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Maori, all of them used the sky to tell time to bless harvests, to choose when to sow and when to wait. But this forest, it feels like it learned that system. Like it observed humans watching the stars and joined in. You walk slowly around the edge of the ring, counting the trees. 13, one for each moon of a lunar year, you whisper. Did someone teach you this? The wind passes overhead like a soft breath drawn in through cupped hands. Maybe the answer is yes. Or maybe it's we learned together. You sit on a stump near the edge of the grove and close your eyes. And what happens next is not a dream. Not really. More like a memory you're borrowing. You see figures walking through the trees, heads tilted upward. They hum as they plant each song aligned with a phase of the moon. Children lay seeds in the dirt and pat them gently. Elders tap trunks with flat palms and listen. They're not praying, they're communing. And in the vision, the trees respond. Leaves flutter out of season. Roots shift minutely beneath the soil, and above it all, the stars blink like distant, patient instructors. You open your eyes. The clearing is still, but your pulse isn't, because you realize the truth. It wasn't just humans using the sky to guide their lives. The forest was learning alongside them, maybe even faster. Historians still argue whether oral traditions about listening trees were metaphor or misunderstood science. whether sacred groves were just symbolic or whether they functioned as part of ancient calendars. Most say it was ritual, but maybe ritual was the data collection. And the forest, it remembers everything. You reach into your pocket and touch the meteor seed again. It's warm, not hot, just warm enough to feel alive, like it's waiting for starlight to hit the soil. You whisper, "You want to grow under stars, don't you?" The seed doesn't answer, but the trees around you all lean just a little more toward the moon. You leave the lunar grove slowly, like stepping out of someone's home after being told a family story that was never meant to be written down. The wind has picked up ever so slightly, brushing against your arms with a coolness that feels more like memory than weather. The trees seem to know where you're headed next, because as you continue down a narrowing path, the forest shifts again, not in color or shape, but in feeling. The moss is softer here, deeper. The air is thinner but not empty, more like filtered, as if the world around you is trying to quiet down to help you hear. And here you do, because suddenly it's not your breath you're hearing. It's thoughts, but not yours. They don't have language exactly. No words, no voice, but there are impressions, emotions, half-formed ideas. You pause, press your hand to the nearest tree, and close your eyes. The forest dreams, and you are inside it. You see things that don't belong to you. A comet streaking overhead seen not from Earth, but from beneath its light through 1,000 leaves. A sky full of fireflies, mistaken for stars until they vanish one by one. A root system touching another root system far away, pulsing with the same rhythm like hearts syncing without meeting. You open your eyes, breath held tight in your chest. The forest has been learning, not just watching, not just tracking. Learning, like a slow green consciousness built out of ring and root and repetition. Historians still argue whether plants are capable of memory, much less dreamlike cognition. But in recent years, a few brave biologists began suggesting that trees might store environmental patterns, not in neurons, but in their very structure. A form of embodied recall, not awareness exactly, but wisdom. And wisdom apparently can take root. You walk forward and find yourself in another clearing. This one is shaped like a spiral, barely noticeable at first, just a trail of shorter trees circling inward like a fern unfurling. In the center, a smooth rise of stone, half covered in moss. You climb it instinctively and lie down. As your back presses against the warm rock, you feel its vibration. Faint, but steady. The stars overhead are brighter here, as if the forest is pushing the sky closer so you can see. And in that moment, you no longer feel like a guest. You feel like a student. The stars become clearer, organizing themselves into the spirals you saw in the roots, in the rings, in the branches. They're everywhere. This spiral isn't decoration. It's a formula. The golden ratio, Fibonacci, recursion. Call it what you like. The forest has been tracing it in everything it does, and it saw it first in the stars. You close your eyes again and let yourself fall into the rhythm. 1, then 2, then 3, then 5, then 8, counting not in numbers but in shapes, in growth. You whisper, "How long have you been dreaming?" The wind doesn't answer, but the earth hums a little louder beneath you, like it's saying longer than you can count. You lie still on the stone as the forest hums beneath you, and for a while, it feels like you've stepped outside of time. No clocks here, just breath, rhythm, the rising and falling of distant tree limbs. You open your eyes slowly and stare up through the branches, and that's when you notice something else, something small, something easy to miss, unless you're looking for it. A branch above you is glowing, faintly, not neon, not artificial, more like moonlight has soaked into it, the kind of glow that isn't about being seen, but about having absorbed something. You stand, approach the tree slowly, and place a hand on the glowing limb. It hums under your palm, and not randomly. It pulses in intervals, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short again, like a heartbeat. No, like a code. You glance around and spot another branch, this one broken and lying on the forest floor nearby. The same soft glow clings to its grain like frost. You pick it up, holding it gently, and it responds to your touch. Glows brighter, then fainter, then bright again. You raise it to the sky, and something inside you shifts, because you realize this branch isn't just glowing randomly, it's mirroring starlight. There's a theory, a truly fringe one, that trees over centuries might store light information within their rings. Not light like photons, but frequency patterns. And maybe not on purpose, just as part of growing. Taking in energy, keeping it. But what if one grew enough? What if the tree wasn't just a memory? What if it was a recording? Historians still argue whether so-called starwood mythical trees said to glow under moonlight were ever real. Most say it's just folklore, poetic license, but the wood in your hand tells a different story. It's not warm, but it feels alive. You lift it higher toward a particularly bright star above the trees, and the branch pulses again, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. You turn slowly, aligning the branch with the star, and then you feel it, not from the branch, from the trees around you. A kind of ripple, soft, almost shy, but unmistakable. The forest recognizes the alignment, like a lock finally meeting its key. You walk slowly now, holding the glowing branch ahead of you, letting it guide your steps like an ancient lantern. Each time you align it with a star, the light flickers slightly, responding. It's not dramatic, but it's consistent. The forest isn't just reacting to you, it's interacting with the sky. You arrive at a clearing where a dozen trees encircle a central space, and in the middle, another branch driven upright into the soil like a sundial. Except this one glows too. You approach. The branch in your hand brightens slightly as you draw near. And just as your 2 lights align, something clicks. Not a sound, a feeling, like permission. Like a door swinging open in a room you didn't know you were standing in. The trees around the clearing creak softly, branches swaying, even though there's no wind. You kneel, press the glowing wood to the upright one in the center. The glow spreads not into fire, not into blinding light, but into a quiet, soft halo. The forest is showing you something. Its storage, its archive, its quiet leafy library of celestial memory. Starlight absorbed over centuries, patterns stored in grain and ring and root, and you somehow are the reader. The glow fades slowly, and the branch returns to stillness. But your heart doesn't, because now you know the trees didn't just learn to count the stars, they kept them. You rise slowly, the once glowing branch, now dim and resting gently in your hand. The clearing feels quieter than before, not empty, just reverent, as if you've just stepped out of an ancient cathedral where the walls are made of bark and the light is measured in whispers. You take one last glance at the upright branch in the center. It remains planted, waiting patiently, like it's held that place through winter's wars and wonder. You nod to it, almost reflexively. It feels appropriate. You're not just a visitor anymore, you're a witness. The path ahead is narrower, winding between trees that grow closer together, their limbs twisted not in chaos, but in unity, as if they've braided themselves together on purpose. You pass under an archway made from 2 leaning trunks that curve toward each other like old friends who finally made up. And then, the hill. It's not steep, but you feel it in your thighs as you climb. The trees thin as you go, and with each step, more stars become visible. The forest is pulling back its curtain. At the summit, you stop, not because you're tired, because you're stunned before you a wide open vista, and in the valley below the forest stretches in every direction. But that's not what holds you still. It's the pattern. From this height you can see it. The spiral, the rings, the branching constellations formed by treetops. You'd thought it was random. You'd been wrong. The entire forest is one giant astronomical instrument, a living observatory. Historians still argue whether ancient megalithic structures were inspired by nature or vice versa. Stonehenge, Newgrange, Nabta Playa, they debate origins, intent, meaning. But here you are looking at something neither built nor designed by human hands. And yet it's perfect. The alignment, the symmetry, the intent. You sit down on a rock at the top of the hill and close your eyes again. The breeze carries with it the scent of pine and the faintest taste of something metallic like rain on stone. The forest is still, and yet you can feel it thinking. Somewhere below, roots are humming, leaves are twitching, patterns are forming again, not for your benefit, but because that's what the forest does. It watches, it waits, it counts. You remember that seed in your pocket? You pull it out, it's glowing again. Just faintly, just enough to feel like it's aware. You don't ask permission. It's not that kind of place. Instead, you walk a few steps downhill to a small patch of soft earth. You kneel, dig gently, and plant it. No ceremony, no speech, just you and the forest, sharing an unspoken agreement. Grow, look up, learn. You pat the soil back into place and sit beside it. The sky above you pulses with quiet brilliance. One star falls, then another, then another. And somewhere beneath the surface, a seed begins to count. You stay seated beside the newly planted seed for a long time. There's no sense of urgency. The forest has slowed you down to its tempo, unhurried, patient, deliberate. Your heartbeat matches the rhythm of falling stars overhead. Your breath, the hush of wind across ancient moss. Everything is quiet, but it's not empty. The hush carries meaning now. Every rustling leaf feels like a line in a symphony, every creaking branch like punctuation. The forest isn't just a place anymore, it's a language, a consciousness, a memory that stretches back before names, before clocks, before even myths had faces. You lie back on the moss, arms out like you're about to make a snow angel in the soft green. The stars twinkle, but differently now. You realize you're not just watching them. You're part of the pattern. You follow one constellation with your eyes, Orion maybe, and then you see it. A faint outline in the forest canopy below that mimics the same stars. A perfect mirror, not by chance, but by purpose. You remember the spiral grove, the meteor seed tree, the lichen that pulsed like blinking eyes, all of it connected. It's not about individual phenomena. It's about scale. The forest isn't mimicking the sky. It's integrating with it. And just when you think that idea is the wildest you'll entertain tonight, a soft sound stirs behind you. Footsteps, but not human. A deer steps into view, white, almost glowing like mist given legs. It doesn't startle. It just watches you. Its breath puffs in the cool air, visible for a moment, then gone. Then with slow dignity, it lowers its head toward the seed, one long breath, and then it vanishes into the trees. You sit up startled but not afraid. A fringe belief in some northern cultures held that forest spirits, particularly in deer form, appeared when humans aligned themselves with the rhythms of the wild. No sacrifice, no summoning, just harmony. Historians still argue whether such legends were based on real sightings or simply metaphors for emotional clarity. but you're starting to believe that metaphor and memory might be the same thing out here. You rise, brushing dirt from your hands, and glance back at the seed, still faintly glowing. You take a step away, then another. The forest doesn't stop you, doesn't beg you to stay. It trusts you now. It knows you've seen enough, that you'll carry its story forward, not by shouting, but by noticing, by listening, by counting. And maybe someday, when someone asks you why some trees whisper at night, you'll know how to answer. They're not whispering secrets. They're whispering stars. Now slow your breath. Ease your shoulders. Let your eyes get heavy. Imagine the canopy above you, green and endless, dotted with glowing lichens shaped like galaxies. Let your thoughts float like seeds drifting gently toward soft soil. Let your heartbeat follow the rhythm of the trees. Let the forest sing you to sleep. And when you wake, maybe a tiny part of you will still be counting the stars,